Hello, my name is Samadan. Now, you may know me from my gold-making exploits in World of Warcraft and occasionally my Let's Play series, but also by day I am a CG Supervisor for a mid-sized VFX company here in London. So I've not been able to get the Blizzard cinematic out of my head. It's been something that I've just been obsessing over since it came out, and I wanted to just discuss sort of my thoughts on it and what makes it, such a top-notch animation. What makes it stand out from the rest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through it shot by shot, just analyze, what's so great about it, what my thoughts are, coming at it from a VFX background. I mean, I've been doing cinematics myself. I've been working in the film and TV industry for a few years now, most recently on Secret Invasion and Heart of Stone. So there's been quite a few shows that I've been involved in recently, and I thought I'd approach this like I'd approached a dailies session. We're using RV here to go through and just go through it shot by shot and have a look. So let's start right back at the beginning. Okay, so ESRB warning, of course. Here we go. So obviously this is going to be back and forth. If you haven't seen the cinematic already, please go and watch that first on the World of Warcraft YouTube channel, because that is, the best way to watch it. Put your headphones on and get fully immersed. But just look at this as an establishing shot. This is amazing. So first thing you're thinking, okay, who is this? Where are we? Even with this out of focus shot, we have the framing at the beginning, lovely rule of thirds kind of, divide the frame here and here and here. You can see, it's obviously Anduin. We haven't even pulled focus yet. But then we pull focus straight in from the foreground here, straight in. And this is one of the things that you see, very clever use of depth of field to really draw the audience in. So it's got kind of out of focus to start with, and then we pull them in, and this is just a beautiful silhouette. I mean, even if you look at this, in black and white, looks lovely, absolutely lovely. If I was to analyze this from a black levels and white levels, obviously I haven't got the full EXRs here, where I'd be able to do the sort of full dynamic range shift and have a look at sort of the darks and the lights and things, but you can get a good idea as to the lighting that is used here is, really nice. You've got this warm, deserty feel about it. I mean, when I first looked at this, I thought, okay, I recognised it was Anduin, of course, by the sword. I thought this was the Maw, because that's, where he was. It wasn't really until the end that I clocked that it was a completely different location. So just looking at this, really nice establishing shot. I mean, from a CG point of view, what have we got here? We've got some lovely vegetation here, not much. I mean, usual typical Blizzard things. You've got very still character, bit of wind movement, and usually some billowing cloak. Here it's very, very subtle. It's pulled down. You can see the smoke. We've got a little bit of smoke just pulling over from screen right, and a little bit of motion in his cloak, but it's all tucked away behind this rock, so it's all very nice and very easy to control. I think that kind of cloth sim is just, yeah, there's not much in that really in terms of when you're looking at that. Very easy just to tuck it behind. There's no real, I don't think it's even interacting with the rock by there. You could probably just mat that over the top and just run the sim of the cloth over that. Obviously we're focusing here. If you look, you can't quite see it because my camera's in the way, but let's just move this across here. I mean, just look at the details that we've got here. Obviously this is not full 4K resolution, and we've got obviously YouTube compression with everything here, but look at the grains of sand. This is the kind of the level of detail that we're dealing with here. It's really, really nice to see. I mean, the vegetation itself, looking at that, it's your typical, very easy to knock together speed tree asset with a bit of variation in there. Really nice use of the depth of field, I would say, going through that. So this sets the scene of the level of quality that we're focusing on here. So it's really nicely lit with the pastel colours here. This could be straight out of a scene of Dune with this, sunset just coming over screen left here. Very, very understated, but it draws our attention straight to what I'm doing here. I've been talking for ages and I haven't even got off the first shot yet, but absolutely lovely setup scene. Nice establishing shot. So here we go, first up details. Now obviously we got such a shallow depth of field to all these close-up shots. Really feels like the camera and the operator are standing right next to Anduin, so it kind of like pulls in all that intimacy for this kind of like scene of, okay, we're up close and personal with Anduin here. From a CG point of view, really nice texture going on in this sort of Hessian burlap cloth. You've got his groom for his hair, which is pretty shaggy and unkempt at this point. It's kind of nice and neat and easy to cut down in here. What would possibly be nicer if there was a certain amount of sort of like that sort of sweaty wetness. You could possibly push some of the groom in here and clump it together a little bit more. But for the purposes of this this kind of shot, I mean, you're just so close. It's not really obvious. But then you get into here, and then you can see here we've got the peach fuzz going on. Down on his ear bits, you've got the dirt over the surface. It's got a story, this dirt. It's not all grimed up inside. It's as if he's kind of like wiped his ear and the dirt's gone on the outer surface of it. It's those little details that, you know, really just bring the whole thing together. You've got the overall lighting, the pastel colours and everything like that. Even like this little mole down here is such a nice touch. The groom here on the close-up for his beard that's really roughly shaven. I mean, I look at my own and I can see how when you look at all the fine hairs and stuff, they go off in all lots and lots of different directions. So the kind of dishevelled look on this is really nice. The lighting wise, I mean, you've got quite a soft light coming off screen left, but you can see here the highlights and the speck just coming in and just catching off the skin pores here screen right. So it's a real balance between getting those highlights and those darks. Obviously you've got the deep darks inside his cloak there as well, but absolutely lovely establishing shot. You know, he's completely still, and you're just focusing on the details. Okay, this is someone unkempt. The way you're looking at this, I mean, look at on the moustache here, it's not neatly trimmed in the slightest. You've got long hairs, you've got long hairs here, and then you've got lots of other short hairs, bits and pieces here. So it's got a lot of variance to it. You can see all the skin pores here, and obviously his lips. Looking at these, you know, dry, cracked lips, all very, very well textured. The amount of detail that has gone into this, the textile density is huge on this. So really nice establishing shot. And then here we focus in on the details. So let's go. We're chopping around quite a lot onto different close-up areas, which from a CG point of view, you can really just focus on those one things and have them completely separate assets. And then when you've got a wider shot, you can go with a lower detail version. So it allows each artist to set up each scene completely differently using bespoke assets if they so want to. So for this, you could just just have a hero asset that's just got this tip of the sword. With the nice brushed metal here. Obviously this is a really bad way to look after your sword, but as you can see it's gone through a few dinks and nooks anyway. But looking down here at the sand, nice little, see how those grains drop down? That's probably a Houdini sim. It's quite it's not, I won't say any of this is easy, but it's a new method of simming particles and things in Houdini where you can clump them together quite nicely. So seeing those just little bits just drop down like that really just knocks into place the central position of this sword and the wind just blowing across screen. Again, we've got really shallow depth of field here. I can't quite tell from here. Yeah, we do have a few grains coming across in the wind, very slightly. Looking at that, you can probably get a better idea of that. Yeah, just giving a little bit. Obviously, the compression is really not favouring that at all. Making a nice bit of movement there. Just a little bit of extra kick, just to sell the idea that the wind's blowing across here. And then again, cut to another hero asset. So this is just his hand. The things you'll be looking at here, okay, is there's a little bit of motion in here, but you're looking at the detail of all his armor. It's it's dinted, it's chipped. Really nice shader on the gold and the silver here, and the leather. In fact, just looking at that's got a real scuffed purpose to it by having the extra bits of scuffing here and the stitching on here. Whether you'd go to the level of sculpting that kind of detail in, probably that sort of thing I'd sculpt in ZBrush, because you're not really having to do the stitching, but you'd have a brush that would allow you to just kind of draw a line across that. But really nice stitching, cracked leather. You're not having to do much in the way of rigging at this point. It's simply just a rotation. I'm not seeing a lot there. The sound is actually is selling that more to me, the creak of leather. You're getting that more than anything else, and the roll forward there. But it all gives a little bit of life to it, a little bit of micro movements, and it's this realism, this hyper realism that Blizzard do so well, and you can see their artistry has only gotten better and better. Right, so now we go to the eyes, the windows to the soul. This is our first shot of them, and again, really, really shallow depth of field. So that allows us just to focus on a very small area, but that's not to disclude all the other areas that are still moving around, because you'll still detect that kind of movement. So I'd be looking at things like his nostril flares. Is he breathing? That kind of thing. There's a little bit of flare just at the end there. You can't even see his eye or anything. It's out of focus. There's that little bit of movement, and eyes are really, really hard to do. I mean, there's some basic principles you can do, but that kind of closure, it's not just a simple open close of an eye. You've got the closing and then the extra compression as the muscles are squeezing the eye shut even more. Very little movement at this point. It's really quite subtle at this point. Just closing. I mean, from an animation point of view, this is really nice, making the most out of minimal movement. I mean, obviously you can see just exactly how wet his eyes are. You've got the extra highlight under here of the eye, so you've got the main eye, and then the extra pooling of water underneath here, which is he's upset, and these are the human cues we look for. I won't go too much into the music. I mean, it's really, really poignant. But this is more from a visuals point of view. The combination of the two works so well together. And here we go. So the beat cut into what we don't know, the heart of something. Really nice combination of colours here. The palette of the blue and the almost volcanic. This kind of stuff, I mean, very much sort of like a solar flare kind of thing. This would be layered up in elements in Houdini. Most likely, this kind of stuff's like your bread and butter. And then again, okay, so we got Back to Anduin. Again, well out of focus, and then we pull it in. This reminds me of the Jibaro, the Netflix's the Netflix Love, Death and Robots. That kind of same wetness and sadness to the eyes. He's got that real 1,000-yard death stare. You know, he's not a happy chap. You're starting to see a few more details of his war wounds here. He's got the scar across his eyebrow there. But it's very still. The only thing I'd possibly add in here at this point would be a little bit more movement, but he is literally just opening his eyes as the focus pulls straight in there. This is quite interesting, this scar across here. It's almost like, you know, those scars where the plasma has gone over a scab. This kind of graze is healed. It looks more of a smear here. And this one's more of a sharper cut, maybe slightly fresher, as is this one here. But really nicely framed, slightly off center. Probably thinking depth of field wise. Now you can do it two ways. You can do the depth of field in CG at render time. I would be tempted with Nuke these days. You can get some really nice bokeh with some presets and some anamorphic lens distortion and things. So you'd probably control this more easily in Nuke in post render, I would say, from looking at that. Either way, I mean, renderers are so quick these times. I mean, in terms of renderer, I would take a guess. I mean, in VFX, Arnold tends to be the big one. For skin and things like this, maybe RenderMan for some of this. It does give a certain softness to the quality. I mean, just look at the highlights catching the peach fuzz there on top of his groom. Those are the kind of details that would really just stands out so well. Okay, so where have we gone there? I've jumped around a little bit. Okay, so in terms of story, it's just Anduin at this point on his own, and then sound of something and him looking off to screen left. Now, what's interesting here is looking at the eyelids. It's the details that get me every time. It's the details that does it. Blink, look, blink and left. So blink, look, left. So that's kind of like a standard in terms of like if you're going to look somewhere, you blink and then you look. And so he's leading with just his eyes. A little bit. So blink, compression, and then you can see there the eyeball is moving underneath the eyelid because of the kind of the lump of the cornea going across. You get that kind of stretch across there. And you look at the skin in terms of what's moving where. So we've got a little bit, you've got probably a number of different blend shapes and things controlling this in terms of how they're going to do this technically. And then he's just pulling his eyes over to the left. There's not. And then back ahead. So he's he's acknowledged what's over there and then doing his 10,000-yard death stare straight ahead. You're seeing obviously a bit of the environment around here. I wonder if you can actually get a premonition of what's to come in terms of what's reflected in his eyes. I don't know about you, but I could almost see a sword shape in there, only because I know the ending and stuff. But that might be me over-egging things a little bit. The only thing maybe, I mean, in terms of wetness, looking at this, and it's really nicely done. You're getting a nice bit of motion in the eyebrows as well, even though they're out of focus. Okay, another hero shot, another appendage. Okay, now we've got a foot. So this has got a lot technically going on with it. You've got a sim going on with the sand. So we've already, you can out of frame. You're already carrying the sim forward because we're losing sand here as we're kicking forward. And that sand is being thrown out, even out of focus. It just sells that realism. And looking at that, you've got the lovely compression here of this part of the heel of the leather. And then the crunch here of the grains of the sand. It's not coming out very well because of the compression of the video and things. But this kind of stuff, these kind of attentions to detail is what really sell the idea here. So again, we've had the same lighting throughout, kind of a warm key light off to the left, and then a little bit. Well, that's a lovely stretch going on there. So what you've got here is the actual stretch and compression, which you get with leather. It kind of like it's a real understanding of the materials. You get that kind of like that real kind of like loopy dip, new technical phrase, of the leather there, and then it stretches out, and then with of course all the additional stuff on top. Really nice weight coming through that foot. There's a lot in this. There's a lot of moving parts. You've got the kind of steel toe cap, the iron shod boot bit. This section is moving separately to the boot, as does this section. And then you've got these are more solid, and then you've got the boot itself, and then you've got the fur on top. So lots of different materials, different amounts of movement, all selling. I mean, this is so much work on a foot. 1 foot in the sand. But it gives us a clue. Okay, who is this coming along? We're obviously looking at this and going, okay, it's probably an orc of some kind, maybe. There we go. The first signs of sort of really intricate mouth movement here. This is a lot of different blend shapes going on here. You've got it's being lifted first by the muscles up here. So you're pulling the rig, whatever controllers they're doing it, whether you've got controllers here that are pulling all the direction up here, and then the parting of the lips. This is kind of like a really difficult, it's not that difficult, but it's kind of like a really good point is the sticky lips thing, where you have the lips are stuck together because they stick together at the sides, and then they part across as the mouth opens. You don't see it so much there. Don't see it much in that one. It's very subtle. You could possibly accentuate that a little bit more if I was to look at this. Yeah, there's not a huge amount in terms of sticky lips there. But some really nice just parting. The sticky lips is more kind of like across the whole length of it. But it's like that curling of one side, the asymmetry to it. And then here we've got a lovely framing of Anduin, with which we assume to be Thrall in the background. I mean, who else would come visit him in his pain and suffering?
You're here to tell me we don't get to hide.
Now, what you tend to do when you're looking at people talk, especially with all CG stuff, is you tend to either focus on the mouth or the eyes. It's one of the two, and these are both front and center of the frame. So this is the this is the money shot in terms of whether you're selling the realism here.
You're here to tell me we don't get to hide.
Now looking at that, I would say that's a pretty bang on job. One of the things that's also really nice to see is a bit of crookedness in the teeth. Looking at the mouth shapes he's pulling there, you're getting the main muscles here driving a lot of the mouth shapes.
We don't get to hide.
And such an intense stare, not even blinking. A little bit of pupil dilation perhaps, but that little bit of scrunching of the eyes. But you just get to admire all the details at this point. Looking at this, I mean, his obviously close cropped hairdo, but with all this straggly beard, almost like he's cut it himself with his sword.
We don't get to hide.
And then full frame. Here we go into Thrall. Thrall's such a square character. I always admire Blizzard for actually being able to articulate orcs with mouth movements, with all this stuff going on with the teeth. It's no mean feat to be able to form all the sort of correct lip shapes to sell this. So we see him pull into focus here.
You're here to tell me we don't get to hide.
And into focus.
You needed time.
And then just resting on the syllables like time, but his whole face just softens into that one syllable.
Is that it?
You needed time. We stayed away. But time by itself.
Again, but looking at Thrall's eyes, he's upset too. They're both upset. You know, he's got sympathy for him here. I mean, looking at the greyness of Thrall's hairdo here, the braids going on at the side.
But time by itself.
It's quite nice that you can block that off with a big chunky bit of metal and hide the braids here, and then the rest is, I mean, texturing wise, it's really nice. This kind of dent here just really sells the story of the armor. These kind of dents here, really nice details on the edges. The same here, really well sculpted. I quite like how Thrall's lips, in terms of like the texture on them, they're obviously really accentuated here, but they work so well.
By itself. Heals nothing.
Yeah, a little bit more there on the leather articulation. I'm not seeing anything massive in terms of cloth sims. A little bit of creasing here just under it, but the framing of it does hide a lot of that, so you can get away with it. And here we go, our first sort of properly in focus picture of Thrall. Looks really good with all his armor and stuff. I would say the skin, green's such a difficult color to pull off in terms of skin and stuff. You look at the Hulk, but this is quite nicely balanced because the color palette is so subdued anyway. It doesn't really matter too much. He's got these big chains hanging off of his armor, which give you quite a bit. All this stuff hanging off here is, you know, your typical Blizzard cinematic things. Let's have dangly bits hanging off of stuff, and then animate all those dangly bits. And then on top of that, you've got all the fur, which probably, let's have a look, is probably just blowing in the wind. Yeah, there we go. It's got a little bit of just general shimmer on it. Possibly looks a little too uniform there.
You didn't just come here for me.
And here we get a nice side-on view of his groom. There's a lot of harsh shaving going along here on the sides. The backhand a little bit soft, I'd possibly put a lot more sort of clumping and sweat behind the back of his neck on here. But all this kind of stuff, all this clumping that you've got going on here, all the bare patches, the bold patches, the scraggly bits, works really, really well.
It's the visions. You've seen them.
I suspect many have.
There's quite a lot going on here in the cheeks, just puffing out with his breath. It helps sell the fact that he's actually breathing. So on the P, on the plosive, the air's going back into his cheeks.
You've seen them.
I suspect many have lately.
Even if you look at it, raising of his eyebrows there at the end, raising his ears at the same time. Nice little subtle touches. There's not a lot going on in terms of wind at this point. A little bit here on the cloak, but you can see it in the background. There you go. Typical Blizzard, sort of dangly chains and things moving across with the movement. That just really sells it. Obviously the sound, the Foley work in this as well really helps. Down onto one knee. Now here we go, close up of Thrall's hand. This is another hero asset. You can see, look at the details here in his fingers. So you've got a lot going on here in terms of the sculpt.
Something.
Now the bit that really gets me here, it's not so much, you know, the grains simulation here of the hands going in, the fingers going into the sand. It's the knuckles. The knuckles that sell it. You look at your own skin on your knuckles, and when you flex out your hand, the skin bunches up over the knuckle, and the creases just deepen, and it all comes in together. And when you're rigging something like this, it's not something that you generally control so well.
Something.
Here, that last bit there, just as we push the blend shape further, just looking at the top of the knuckles, just going in there, that sells the realism to me here. Look at the skin folding in on itself. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of skin fold vellum type sim going on here, or at its simplest some sort of blend shape, just really further accentuating those deep creases as he pushes his palm down in there. And look at the detail here on the leather, where it's all broken away and shaved off because he's put his fingers in and out of these gloves a long time. Really nice attention to details. I mean, they're quite beaten up fingernails. Looking at this, if anything, I'd maybe add another sort of layer of cuticle damage or broken skin onto his actual nail beds themselves, looking at my own fingers as reference. I mean, that's the key thing to a lot of this. It is down to reference. All this kind of broken skin, the dryness coming through, it just helps sell the fact that this is worn, beaten up, that kind of vibe to it.
Someone is calling out.
Now, here we go. Look at the rim light on this. We've swapped lighting around a little bit more, so we've got a stronger sunlight here, but it's really catching all the peach fuzz on the side of Thrall's cheek here, and the deepness of his wrinkles, and the groom that you got on with the eyebrows and the lighter fur going into the peach fuzz here. It's really, really nice. And then obviously this warm key light over here, screen right. You look over here, you've got a nice blue fill light just bringing in that shape on the left hand side. The other thing I'd look for here is, does he look like he's breathing?
Is calling out from the heart of the world.
There's a lot of movement going on with the nose as he's speaking, quite nicely. He's got his eyes closed. He's speaking, but his lips are out of frame. You got so close, so intimate that it allows you to. You still got to animate it. You still got to believe that it's all happening. But there's so much going on here, off screen.
From a dream. Something dark is coming, Anduin. The world needs your light again.
These kind of interactions, they seem so simple, but the act of putting a hand on a shoulder takes a lot of extra simming. You've got the shape of the cloth, and then the thumb is compressing down on it. And then his shoulders dropping a little bit animation wise, but the cloth's going to have some space in it. And to get that to interact without the cloth bubbling underneath and things, I mean, you'll probably have a separate hand that is more of a smooth mesh, smooth down, less detailed mesh that is hidden, and that's doing the actual collision of the cloth simulation. If it's even done as a cloth simulation, it really does interact well. You've got some good contact points there. But looking at it's the camera and Anduin's movement, the whole flinch at the contact, which then you see why in the next shot. I'm playing it backwards, hold on.
Needs your light again.
All tied in with the music, the poignant keynote, it's all tied together. All of this stuff, it just goes to show the attention to detail that Blizzard put in their cinematics. So we've got, looking at this, obviously a mirroring of the hand on the shoulder here, completely different colour palette and everything. The whole streamy effect, that's quite easily overlaid on, that kind of smoky effect. Particle stuff is so I say easily done, but there's a certain artistry to this one, having the thin strands and the more wispy strands. You've got the same issue or the same simulation going on here on the cloth on the side. Some really nice key lights picking out the groom on his facial hair here. And another nice thing you can see here with his grimace, catching the highlights of the teeth. It does sell the different types of materials. And then he's kind of like, you can see the tension here, because you're going from just looking at his teeth here, you can feel the tension. Like he's grimacing there, his teeth are together, and then at the next point he actually juts his lower jaw forward, so he's under even more tension and his resentment. Only thing, looking at this contact shadow wise, this kind of does look a little bit weird with a thumb on here. Just looking at it as from a stillness point of view, I probably want to bring some more shadow into this area. But it's a minor point. Obviously, we got then motion blur covers everything, hides a volume of sins if you need it to. Looking at the cloth sim here, looking at the stretch of his leather, his tunic here, it looks slightly contrived because this cloth is completely stuck to this. So the sim will happen behind the arm, and all the wind stuff's happening here. So all this will be part of the actual skin itself. The same with this whole thing here. There's no need to sim everything. I don't see a lot of things gliding on top of each other. No, none of the cloth here. None of this cloth is sliding over that. So it's all probably one whole rig together. The only thing possibly looking at that is the gap appearing in the armor there. That might be separate, but maybe there's some pinning going on with the cloth over the top of that. But look at the tension of that, and you get a really good sense of his pain and his anguish. I mean, I'm kind of skirting over the story beats and the music beats. I'm looking at this from as a sort of from a CG point of view, looking at the difficult things that are being done in this animation. I mean, the animation is really nice reference. I'm told it's hand animated, which doesn't surprise me, but with good reference.
I'm not that person.
And another little detail, but it's great. Stringy spit. That's what we need. That kind of stuff just sells the idea that this is a real human. Let me just play that back a little bit.
I'm not that person.
It doesn't take a lot. It's literally just a few frames. You could possibly... I wouldn't even necessarily sim something like that. There's lots of different things you could do there. You could paint it on, or you could literally sim that. But you just want to catch those highlights, just sell the points. The whole animation of his tongue as well. I'm not that person, so there you go. You can see his tongue. But the good thing is, again, framing wise, his mouth's half off the screen and it's half out of focus, so you can get away with a lot just by hiding a few things. It's clever use of framing and clever use of depth of field.
I'm not that person anymore. I have no light. Not after.
So we're getting a little bit of wind going on here on Thrall.
What I've done.
Another material thing here, the gem in the center catching the lights.
You are not your past, Anduin.
I'd say that the lip syncing of Thrall is more believable. Maybe it's because he's an orc. A nice bit of compression as the sword tips steadies.
I trust you.
And the lighting is just so subtly done. It's so nice to see this sort of like warmth coming through. And the music, obviously, bang on point. Oh, there we go. There was a bit more sticky lips going on here. You see that going on off the corner of his mouth? So when he parts his lips, obviously a really nice bit of asymmetry going on there. And the compression, the rolling you've got with his lips as well. When he's puckered them together, and then the lips rolling out together. And there we go. Dunk. Sticky lip, and then open the mouth. Just subtle little details. And this is where we get to see Anduin actually, in his full setup. Very little sort of out of focus at this point, so we get to enjoy all the details of all the modelling and texturing that's going on here. Let's just have a look at their expressions there, because that was really intense. I mean, obviously the motion blur helps disguise that. I would, if anything, possibly put way more creases down in here and furrow this more. And around your eyes, I'd add more creases there. But the whole intensity, the whole lifting of the muscles up here works really, really well. I'd maybe just push those blend shapes a little bit further on that. You don't get to see it very much, I mean, Thrall, definitely, he's not happy. Let's just go back. Yeah, it's over so quickly. It's very easy to look at stuff frame by frame and analyze the hell out of it. But look at it on the run, because that's how it's going to be watched. It's only people like me that really look at this in fine detail. So what have we got here? We've got, again, he's a bit more range of movement with his shawl that he's got here.
They're getting worse.
Probably sim that bottom half. But then you pull it out of focus, you don't really need to.
Look. Whatever's coming, I'll stand.
I mean, this helps hide a multitude of sins. Not sure if that was a hex bolt on his on Thrall's armor. Maybe it comes from IKEA. I don't know.
We were drawn here by the voice.
Gives you a real chance when you're framing like this to look at eyes and mouth whilst you're focusing on it. But really nice overall body selling of the animation. It's not just his lips and his eyes. It's his tilt of his head
Who is
that asks the question.
Thrall? Who's calling out to us?
I'm not sure yet.
I mean, they might want to have a word with Magni. I think he might have a clue. But that's for another matter.
But that sword was
And then here we go. Final shot. Dun, dun, dun. Music crescendo. Here's the thing we're talking about. Obviously, this sword is completely sort of more of an angle, whereas when you see it in Silithus, it's more upright and everything. Real nice, most likely matte painting. The whole thing, I imagine. Probably have a sculpt of the sword that they've lit and put in, but it's a lovely bit of DMP work for your final shot. And then your CG characters at the front. And then, yeah, so we've got some nice little details here. Very, very conveniently, this is all solid, and then behind is all simmed. And then we cut to here, where you can see, yeah, it's a nice, just gentle sim going on with his stuff. Thrall's stuff, I'm not seeing a lot of movement in there. A little bit of the layers of the fur, but he's just standing heroically. You've got the extra stuff going on here, the extra bit of grass on the side, and the dust and the sand blowing over the rim. Works really nicely there. So most likely, I would say this whole layer here is your CG, and then the rest behind is all DMP. Playing backwards still.
But that sword was
Dun dun dun.
someone.
So there's no movement of the clouds or anything in here. You could possibly add that, a little bit of movement or crossways movement, just to give it a bit of life, perhaps. And then, dun dun dun. Nicely backlit logo. Nice planet cracking apart with some lighting in there. So overall, it's just fantastic. I can't fault it. There's a few things that you could possibly do to add to the realism and things, but you know, hats off to you, Blizzard. Art team knocked it out the park. So this, you know, it brings up a lot of excitement for future things. I loved the BFA sequences. You could see the cinematics team had time to do all of those lovely intimate moments then, and then they probably got pulled off onto doing all the cinematics for Diablo 4. So I don't know what they would be working on now, but I would love to see some more of these kind of cinematics. I think they've really honed their skill and do the things that they do well. I mean, this used to be back in the day just fights and stuff like that. It's nice that it's evolved. It's evolved into a more of a intimate storytelling moment. We've had that with the BFA sequences. Of course, all the action sequences are all fun and everything like that. But these kind of cinematics are absolutely a joy to watch, and from a professional point of view, a joy to analyze and enjoy all these sort of the technical elements to it, as well as all the different story elements coming together. Wow, I've talked on loads more than I thought I would have done about a 5-minute sequence. I hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like to see more of this kind of stuff, please let me know. From a CG supervisor's point of view as to what stuff I love and how it really sort of sells the story to the audience with all those little CG details and things. I hope it lifts behind the curtain a little bit. If you have any questions, please do ask me. I'm more than happy to answer. So until next time, I'd say happy gold making, but this isn't about gold making. Stay safe, enjoy WoW, and let's look forward to what's to come.